This video is about deepening our understanding of the 7-word system. A beginner's guide is available elsewhere, but for those of us who actually want to really study the implications of these 7 words, we need to think more philosophically and have some understanding of what's going on. Any dynamic process has different aspects to it, and we're saying here it's convenient, meaningful to study 7 aspects of a situation, 7 necessary and sufficient conditions for us to fully grasp any dynamic system. Why 7? Well, there are clues. There are lots of clues why we should look at the number 7 as being helpful, not the least of which is the fact that we've interpreted the light spectrum through the rainbow as having 7 bits. It doesn't. It's it's not a discrete measurable thing. It's an analog system. So you could say there are any number, but we've just said, look, there are 7 colors, and trained ourselves to see 7 colors, notwithstanding the measurement in terms of light spectrum, wavelengths and so on. Also, we've decided on 7 days, 7 days of the week. Now that almost certainly comes from the fact that there were 7 moving lights in the sky, the sun and the moon and 5 earlier discovered planets. But to find that these 7 moving lights in the sky existed, you had to be a shamanic kind of type of person. Not everyone would have seen 7 lights in the sky. Very few of us have seen Mercury. It's too close to the sun. So we look at the sky, I mean, going back 300,000 years or whatever, when there's no television and you're looking at the sky for entertainment, and eventually you see that certain constellations stay in the same position and other lights move. And these moving lights were called wanderers. Planets is the word that we use nowadays, but originally that word meant wanderer. And there are 7 because of Mercury, and very few people would ever have seen Mercury. It's just so difficult to see. So the number 7 is gifted to us from nature. It's odd. We don't see many things with 7 bits. We see animals with 4 legs, insects with 6 legs. We see people with 2 legs. We don't see many things with 7 legs. There are some starfish with 7 legs and certain plants, particularly the marijuana plant, very often pictured with 7 leaves. But 7 is a very unusual number, so it grabs our attention. And when we study with that in mind, let's look for 7 in a situation and come up with 7 different aspects of reality. Then we can see very deeply into the mystery of life. Sufism teaches this. I studied the 7 planes of consciousness at length. This is not unique to Sufism. I understand in Buddhism they have a similar thing. Certainly Maslow's hierarchy has the same number 7, and they equate. The first plane, the slowest vibration of light, is the earth plane. This equates to our word no. The earth plane is defined by the fact that no 2 things can operate at the same place at the same time. It's defined by the existence of boundaries. The astral plane equates to the word hello, and this is the mental realm. This is where the dream space is, where our thoughts, our imagination, all of these things that really go on in our thinking. If we want to engage with the heart, then that's a different word. That's the word thanks, and it's felt. The heart has its own logic. It doesn't conform to the logic of the mind. The heart somehow manages to have a power despite being gentle and innocent. It's very influential. Love. We will do anything for love. It makes no sense. We'll betray all sorts of ambitions and ideas and principles even because we're in love. It's a very powerful energy, and we can create more love. We can make love by developing the depth of our understanding of the word thank you. The word goodbye is equated to the fourth plane of consciousness in Sufism, and this is called the heroic plane. The third plane, thank you plane, is called the plane of love, harmony and beauty. The fourth, also related to the heart, but what we say is the right side of the heart. The heroic plane, this is the heart of oak. This is the energy of courage. I will do whatever it takes because I totally believe in this. This love of that dimension is very often stimulated by nationalism. You identify with your country on this level if you're a military man. But it is not only that, it's to do with principle. The reason why nationalism is such an important energy is because we hold true to the principle of our country's ideals, whereas very few people develop their own individual ideals to be different from their country, their community, their family. They take on what they were given from these creative sources. But individuals who are very strong on the energy of goodbye and the heroic plane, they become self-determined, they become principled, they're in their own integrity, and they're highly authentic beings. They tell the truth, and they stand when standing is required to make a point, make a principle. It's please is the fifth plane of consciousness in Sufism, called the Plane of Splendor, and this relates to sacredness. We very often forget sacredness in life, generally speaking. This is given to us. This is the function of the priesthood, to remind us of the state of sacredness. But we can achieve it alone. Meditators do that all the time, especially when they light candles and burn incense and go through prayer rituals and that kind of thing. Ritual is an important aid to get us into a sacred state. And that state of sacredness is the highest form of creative expression. If we have a clear intention to create something, when we're in that state of sacredness, it occurs. This is the operation of magic. Prayer is magic. It's different from meditation, very different. Meditation, more to do with the sixth plane of consciousness, the plane of the immaculate state is called in Sufism. This relates to the highest level of innocence that we can reach. We're indifferent to what happens to us, what happens to anyone really. We're indifferent to the world itself. We've moved beyond. It's like the equivalent of being at the top of a mountain. The sense of just sitting in meditation in the Himalayas and being very close to God, opening ourselves up to energies which are swirling around, just noticing what they are and feeling a sense of wonder, sense of being small in the presence of something infinite. It's actually a wonderful feeling. Humility is one of the most pleasing of feelings that we can access in life. Now, the seventh word, yes, is the seventh plane of consciousness. We're beyond any sense of self when we move into that sphere of influence, and it's not practical to think of yes in those terms for any worldly endeavor at all. But when you've touched that state of transcendence, really, you can touch the state of transcendence in meditation. It's quite easily achieved by those of us who have done a certain amount of work on meditation will know that we're gifted, sometimes we're lifted into a state of non-self. That transcendent state changes how we then will become back in the earth dimension. So when we've been into this meditative state and we've kind of lost consciousness of ego, we're cleansed in some way and we come back into the world with an ego that we need to function in the world. And because we've touched transcendence, we're much, much more likely to just flow along with things as they arrive. So we say yes more readily. And there are some beings, madzubs they're called in Sufism, holy fools they're called in Christianity. They exist. We don't see many of them, but they maintain somehow, they maintain that condition of living in the transcendental state, even though they're out and about in the village. They're considered crazy. Very often I should think they're being locked up into mental asylums. They don't have the same logic as anybody else. They see that there's a greater logic. The mysteries that we've uncovered so far cannot compare to the mysteries that exist, and the Madzub has direct access to those mysteries. We just cannot understand what they're doing. But what we can do is to say yes more often, and to just remember that perhaps one day we'll reach that state. But in the meantime, to touch a transcendental state in meditation, and to realize that's the most important thing we do with our lives, notwithstanding the family and the career and all the other things which are, in the end, they're distractions. It's really nice, no doubt, to be on your deathbed surrounded by a big family, but you've still got to take that last breath alone. And it is taught that that last breath is all and everything, because whatever's in your mind, whatever's in your heart, as you exhale, that very last breath carries you into the next dimension. And the next dimension, the astral plane, is a world created by the energy that you bring in that last breath. So worth thinking about.